Welcome to the mom room. What am I going to say here? I'm not in my usual spot, but if you're not watching on YouTube, then you don't even know that. It has been such a busy few weeks, and I think I'm finally starting to get a little bit run down. I was like, "Oh my God, look at me. I'm not getting sick, and everybody else around me is getting sick, but I'm not getting it." And then last week, my husband was really sick. He actually stayed home from work for one day. 2 days actually, which never happens. Like, he will go into work half dead if he has to. So that was, I was like, wow, he really is sick. Luckily, Milo and I didn't get it, but now all of a sudden woke up at 1 a.m. with a raging sore throat, took NyQuil, fell back asleep. But now I'm all like stuffed up, and not to give TMI, but let's be honest, that's what I always do. I know when a cold is moving into my sinuses because when I blow my nose, it's like yellowy instead of clear. Like, I have crappy sinuses. I have for years. I know that. Every night, like, a ton of snot comes out of my nose when I lay down. It's really messed up. And I went to an ENT, and he actually put a camera up my nose to look at what was going on, because I was like, it's not, first of all, I get chronic sinus infections, which it's really died down in the last couple years because we weren't really exposed to germs over COVID. Obviously, we were like staying inside of our houses, and then Milo doesn't get as sick, knock on wood, anymore now that he is almost 5 years old. But for the first few years of daycare, when they're initially being exposed to all those germs, it is like sick nonstop. And so of course I would catch whatever cold he was bringing home. But then for me, it would go into my sinuses, and I would have a full-blown raging sinus infection for weeks, when for Milo it was just this basic cold. So that was an issue. And then also, like, if I'm doing yoga or at night I lay on my side to read my Kindle, my sinuses will like drain. It's like I can feel an alien in my skull, like draining through my sinuses until it comes into my lower sinuses to be able to blow out. Or quite literally, if I lean back on my back, it'll go down my throat. I'm not even kidding you. So I used to do yoga all the time. And this is something that happened after I had sinus surgery, which maybe the reason I'm not up all night. The reason I initially got sinus surgery was because it would keep me up at night. Like, my nose would get all stuffy and like irritated, and I would constantly be blowing my nose trying to clear it out, and it would literally keep me up. I would wake up to like 40,000 used Kleenexes beside my bed. It was nuts. So since I had the surgery, that doesn't happen anymore, which is great. But now I have this weird like situation where if I lean to the side after not having leaned or like cleared out my sinuses recently, like an alien will move through my skull, and I'll have to like blow my nose out, and it's a wild amount of snot. Like, I'm just going to say the word snot. It's insane. But when I start to get sick, usually it's clear. If I get sick, it starts to turn yellow. So I went to go see an ENT not that long ago, maybe like a year ago, 2 years ago. And he put a camera in my nose in his office, which it's so uncomfortable. Imagine getting the COVID test where they put it up your nose and you're like, oh my God, Jesus Christ, times 10. Like, he puts this thin little thing all the way up your nose, like with a camera on the end so he can see what's going on. And he was like, yeah, because the sinus drainage thing that I was explaining only happens on the left side. Like, there's nothing on the right side at all. And so he was like, yeah, on the left side, your sinus cavity is completely open, as opposed to being like a smaller entryway, if you will. I don't know. I don't know the medical terms. So obviously when they did my sinus surgery, they like opened up my fucking sinuses and didn't close it on the left side. He's like, it's not a big deal. It's not harmful, but that is why you're all of a sudden getting like this massive drainage of snot when you like lean over. And I was like, okay, well, at least I know what's going on. But like, it's awkward. Like sometimes if I'm getting a massage, let's say, I'll like lay down on the table and then I can feel like snot like dislodging in my brain. And I know as soon as she's like, okay, time to flip over, I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna have to swallow this like basketball sized snot bubble, like, and be totally normal, act like nothing's happening. So anyways, that's my sinus issues. So now usually what happens when I get sick, it's like starts with a sore throat, then it goes into my sinuses, and then maybe I'll get a cough. So I'm hoping I can just nip this right away. I'm gonna try and take care of myself, really like pound vitamin C. There's also something called St. Francis Immunity Rescue or something that my naturopath told me about. We have it for kids, so Milo has one. Let me see, I'm just looking it up. St. Francis Immunity Booster. St. Francis Herb. Anyways, look up St. Francis Deep Immune. So they have little tinctures that you can put in your kids' juice or water or whatever, mix it up. Don't put it in water for kids because it doesn't have a pleasant taste. But if you can mix it even in like yogurt or applesauce, if you think they're going to come down with a cold, highly recommend. And then also I'm pounding vitamin C. I have liposomal delivery vitamin C, which is like a liquid form that I put in my Athletic Greens from Symbiotica. Then I also just take regular vitamin C capsules. I pound them. And guys, like I'm not a doctor. Don't like fucking sue me if you do this and you get diarrhea or something. I will take like 3,000 to 4,000 IUs or whatever the metric is of vitamin C every couple hours throughout the day. So I am like pounding vitamin C. And for the most part, I'm telling you right now, it will completely stop a cold in its tracks. I've done this multiple times. Go watch the movie, That Vitamin Movie, if you're interested. It's fascinating. I am like a huge supplement person. I don't care. And my husband is so not. Like so not. Because they're not taught stuff like that in medical school. He's taught, like, the thing about doctors, like medicine, they are not taught about like prevention, or obviously they are knowledgeable about certain preventative measures, but they are not in the business of preventing things from happening. They're not in the business of you feeling your absolute best. They're in the business of literally fixing something when there's a problem. Okay? That's what they do. And so if you are into like wellness and prevention and feeling your absolute best, immunity, that kind of stuff, you're kind of on your own. Like I see a naturopath, which helps a lot because I've gotten so many good tips from her, and just supplements. Like for example, I was taking this one omega, and I showed it to her. So she was looking at the ingredients label and she was like, yeah, like it's good, but like you really want to have a high number in, I think it's like the EPA or the DHA, like you want to hit a certain number on the ingredients list for that. And mine was nowhere near it. And this is specific for me because I'm focusing on hormones and hormone health and like the stuff that's specific for me. She was like, you would be much better off taking this omega, and I forget the brand name, but I'll share it on, I think it's by Cyto Matrix. My mom also found a really good omega 2, so I'll share that one as well, because the Cyto Matrix brand is really hard to find. Anyways, so I can feel my cold getting into my sinuses. So I'm just going to take it easy today. I was supposed to go to this fashion fundraiser event tonight. I was so excited to go. Alexandra and Shane from This Family Tree were going, and we were so excited to hang out, and we were actually going to be models in the show, which was exciting. Like, I had to go try on my outfit a couple weeks ago, and now sadly, like, I just can't go. First of all, it's very frowned upon to go to events when you're not feeling well and you're sick. Like, I know that I'm sick, so what am I going to do? Show up there and be like, hey, like, I'm here to get everybody sick. Like, very frowned upon. Also, it's an hour and a bit away. Like, I would be driving. I already feel a little bit run down, and like I'm heading towards like Burnoutville. So I'm trying to be like, I'm just trying to take care of myself better, if that makes sense. I really have been overbooking myself, just saying yes to everything, which is great, and I love it, and I so enjoy it. But that's the tricky thing. Like, when you enjoy what you're doing so much, you're inclined to just say yes to everything. Like, you just want to like go out and meet people and like take advantage of all these opportunities that are coming your way. And where do you draw the line, you know? Because at the same time, I want to take care of myself and do things like have a bath every once in a while, and, you know, like get my nails done or put on makeup and go for dinner with friends, visit family. So I don't know, even like just FaceTiming my mom during the day. Like, I used to do that all the time. Like, hey, what are you doing? Like, just like, you know, bugging her basically. Yeah, like, what do you think I should do with my, with the new backyard in the house that we're moving into? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I don't do that anymore. I'm just like work, like so focused, like from the time I get back from school drop off till the time I have to like run out the door to go pick up Milo. It's like nonstop. I've also been trying to pre-record a lot of episodes so that I don't have to record with guests in the summertime, because I want to have the flexibility to be able to travel, to go up to my parents' place. I would like to spend as much time as possible at my parents' place, but again, we're moving in July, so we'll see what happens there, because obviously I'm going to want to get our house set up and, you know, unpack and organize and do all that kind of stuff. So it's just a lot. I forget where I was even going with that. But yeah, just decided to pull out of the fashion show. Take it easy. I booked a vitamin IV drip at my naturopath's office for this afternoon. I'm hoping that will, you know, push me into better health tomorrow and for the weekend. We shall see. I will document the experience. I've never done it before. I always see celebrities doing it, so I'm like, I want to do that. Let's see if it works. Let's see if I feel better or like feel like a superhero after this IV drip. So yeah, a lot of you were so invested, and like I can understand why. It's like such a crazy roller coaster to us, so invested in us finding a house and that journey. Oh my God, I've never driven so much in my life. It was like, oh, a new house came up for sale. Like, let's go see it instantly. Drive an hour to Guelph. So this is the journey of this real estate process. So we sold our house before we found houses that we wanted to look at in Guelph, like seriously. So that was kind of nice because, you know, in the GTA, is Guelph the GTA? I don't even know. It's like the less conditions you have on your offer, the more appealing it is for the people that are selling their house. And so many people were like, oh my God, you're not putting an inspection as a condition. And I was like, I know, it's fucking crazy, but that's literally the world that we live in right now in this area. Especially when you're competing with other offers, if somebody has conditions and then the other person doesn't, the sellers are going to be like, yeah, fuck that. I'm just going to go with this offer. So we were able to waive the condition of having to sell our house, which was huge. We were looking at houses. The first house that we put in an offer on, and thank God we didn't get it, because it was in Kitchener. No offense, Kitchener, but driving through Kitchener, I just didn't get a good feel for it. Waterloo was different. Waterloo felt more like Guelph, but I don't know. I don't know if I didn't see the right areas of Kitchener, or just the houses that we went to go look at were in less than desirable neighborhoods. And by less than desirable, I mean they're nice family neighborhoods, but just not what I was looking for. It was houses crammed in, right next to one another, no trees, construction still going on. It was just very bleak, very bland neighborhood. But anyways, we found this house in this neighborhood in southern Kitchener. And the house was perfect, the layout of the house and the aesthetic of the house. They did the inside of the house so well. It was a new build, but they obviously made a lot of custom changes to the inside. A lot of new builds now have these living areas on the second floor, which is so cool. You can have 4 bedrooms upstairs, or a lot of people nowadays are taking out the 4th bedroom and just making another living room or family room. I loved that. Anyways, didn't end up working out, but it also had this beautiful pool in the backyard. It was a tiny ass little backyard, but the whole thing was this beautiful pool with landscaping and stone and stuff, and an outdoor fireplace with a TV. It was really, really cute. And we were okay, we could do this. Initially we were looking for a house that we would not never, but our intention was not to move in the next 5 to 7 years. But then as we started looking at houses and things like that just weren't coming up, we were you know what? Well, then maybe let's change our mindset to finding a house that we'll be super happy in for 5 to 7 years. And then if we find our dream home and we want to move to a more a house that has a bigger property and privacy, then we'll do that. So once we made that mindset shift, then a lot of other houses became appealing to us. So we loved this house, the inside, and the neighborhood was bleh, but we were okay, let's put in an offer. So we put in an offer, and that night we found out we ended up losing that house, but we were we figured out that we lost it when we were driving home from looking at the house. And so my husband was oh, I'm curious to see what it sold for, once they list the selling price online. So he is such a little detective. So he checked to see what it sold for the following week or whatever, and it was $5,000 more than what we had offered. And the realtor that was listing the house was the realtor that her clients are also the one that bought the house, whose offer was accepted. This is the second time that has happened to us in our real estate life, because initially we put in an offer. Before we moved here, we put in an offer on a house in another location that was dream house. It was so cute, the backyard, the neighborhood, we loved it. And then again, we ended up losing that house for $5,000, and the listing agent was also the agent that sold it to her clients. And we were how interesting. And realtors are supposed to disclose that information if there is a conflict of interest and they're representing both the seller and the buyer for obvious reasons. Just insane. But you know what? I'm kind of happy that realtor was a little shady bitch, because we are so much happier with the house that we got now, and we're going to live in Guelph, which is where I wanted to be. And so, yeah, I was meant to be, but thank you, shady bitch. Then this is another real estate story. So we put in an offer on this house. It was like a new build. It was like right at the top of our, no, this is what happened. This is what happened. All of a sudden, this house was listed, and I was like, holy fuck. Like, this house is in my dream neighborhood, my favorite neighborhood of Guelph, literally down to the corner. My favorite fucking street of the neighborhood, favorite corner of the neighborhood that I love. So we go and see it, and like, there were some downsides, but it was pretty much a new build. It was built like a couple years ago. So beautiful, like the curb appeal, the yard, the trees. You guys know I'm obsessed with having trees. Like, you look out your window and it was just like trees. I was like, oh my God. So I could walk Milo to school. Like, it was just the best. So we went to go see it, put in an offer right away. And they were like, oh, okay, like, we knew there would be competition just because it was such a beautiful house in a desirable neighborhood. And we put in like our top offer, and then the realtor came back and they were like, oh, like, there's a couple from Toronto that is also putting in an offer, and their offer is a little bit higher. Like, do you guys want to improve your offer? And we were like, okay. So we improved it, but we were like, like, we don't really want to pay too much more than this for this house because it still had downsides and wasn't like ideal for us. So anyways, we ended up losing that house because there was a rich couple from Toronto that had no kids that we were competing with. So lost that house, and we were like, oh, okay, like, whatever, wasn't meant to be. So our second choice at that time was this brand new build. Not a massive house, but like, it's bigger than the house that we're in now, which is not like a positive because I curse this house every day because I can't keep it clean. It's too much. Like, it's cluttered everywhere because nothing is like organized. It's just too much space is not always a good thing. And we're 3 people. Okay. We don't need a lot of space. So anyways, this house was huge. The bonuses was it was brand new. Every single finish that they chose was exactly what I like. It was in Guelph. It had 2 spare bedrooms in the basement. So one of them I could make like a sick studio. It had an office space on the main floor. It had the second living space on the second floor. Instead of having 4 bedrooms, it was like 3 bedrooms with that beautiful laundry room. Like, it was just beautiful, massive mud room. The downsides were the neighborhood. Like, again, it was in a neighborhood that was like under construction, and we would have a tiny backyard with no privacy, and there was no trees. And so that was a downside. Also, the price. It was, again, like at the top of what we wanted to pay for a house. So all of a sudden, after we lost that one house, the house, like, we had gone and seen it before, this like big new build, they dropped their price, and we were like, oh. And we knew that they were in a pickle because we went to an open house for that house initially, and the realtor told us that, you know, because like, we were like, why has this house been on the market for so long? And honestly, they listed it initially like way higher than what it was listed at currently. And then you saw like every few months, like, they would drop the price. And it was a vacant house because the couple that built it were from the city, Toronto. And during COVID, they were like, oh, let's build a house in Guelph and like move out of the city, like everybody else decided to do too. But then when the world went back to normal, they didn't want to move out of the city anymore. So they now were carrying 2 mortgages, their house in the city and then this massive house, new build in Guelph. So they really were motivated to sell the house. So we were like, you know what, like, it's not perfect. Like, there's like, it's beautiful, but we're running out of time. Like, we literally need to find a fucking place to live. Or I'm going to start looking at RVs soon and park it in the Walmart parking lot. But anyways, I was like, okay, let's put in an offer. So we put in a lower offer. Like, we went in slightly lower with our closing date. We're like, let's just put in an offer, see what happens. Like, there's lots of positives if we get this house. In my mind, I was just like, I want that fucking studio in the basement. So anyway, we're like, we'll be happy here. So we put in that offer, and then they came back to us, and like, we know that they have to sell the house. Like, they're in a pickle. They come back to us with no like compromise on the price. They like scratched out our offer, put the full list price again, and then asked for a month's earlier closing date, which like we had told them we can't move in June because our house is closing in July. So like, this is our closing date, and we know the house is vacant. Like, they can be flexible on closing. It's just they're carrying 2 mortgages, right? So anyways, 0 negotiations. And then the realtor comes back to us and says, if they're not going to get full asking for the house, then they're just going to sell their house in Toronto and move to Guelph and live in this house. Basically trying to say like, don't come back at a lower offer because we'll just move into the house if we don't sell it at this price. So like, when they said that to us, my husband and I were like, okay, like, do you want me to call movers for you? Like, have fun moving into your house. Like, we don't care. So then we thought about it, just like hit me all of a sudden. I was like, oh my God, remember that house that we saw so long ago? It was one of the first houses that we looked at in Guelph. I loved it. Like, I was obsessed with it. It was in that neighborhood that I'm obsessed with. And it was a custom build. They like tore down an older house that was there, built a custom home. It was perfect for us, like 3 bedrooms. The downside was the basement had really low ceilings and there's no designated office space. So I was thinking about it in the bathtub, and I'm like, you know what? It's significantly less than that brand new build that I was talking about. So I was like, you know what? Like, this house would work for us. It's in the neighborhood that we want. It's beautiful. We can make it work and live a happy life in this house. The backyard's gorgeous. We'll fence in the backyard. And then somebody that follows me, it is Little Blue. I want to find her exact name so you guys can follow. Because in my mind, I was like, maybe I can just build like a little studio / office in the backyard, but not thinking that like I didn't have like a vision of what that would be. I was just like, oh, maybe my dad can come and like, build a box in the backyard that I can set up in. So then this girl that follows me, you don't know how many, like, I love you guys so much. Like, literally this girl like made us decide to buy this house. I can't find it. Okay, one second. Little Blue. Oh yeah, okay. So the Instagram is Little Blue Design House. So at Little Blue Design House. So what her and her husband do are they build office spaces in people's backyards, and they are gorgeous, like so freaking beautiful. And so she messaged me on Instagram and she was like, oh, if you are considering like building an office or a studio in the backyard, like let us know, like we can work with you, blah blah blah. Like, so cool. And so once I saw that, I was like, I started to see the options that we would have. Like, maybe we put in a little pool and like have an office space in the back. And for the time being, I can just set up a desk in the main living area with my iMac and then record downstairs. There's a den and a bedroom. So I can just set up a little studio in the den. Because the basement is set up to be an apartment, which is good for us because we don't use our basement currently. It's literally just where guests stay when they come stay with us. By guests, I mean like our parents. So if our parents stay with us, they have a bedroom, they have a full bathroom, they have a little living area, and they have a full kitchen. downstairs, and laundry. So that's kind of nice. So anyways, I was like, you know what? Like, fuck these people. I'm just gonna, like, let's spend significantly less on a house, do the backyard up beautifully, and live life. Like, plan a Disney trip and live life. Because that's the thing. I didn't want us to, like, to spend, like, yeah, that house was big and it has a ton of space, but, like, space that we don't use. I would rather be like, oh, Harry's playing in LA next week. Like, Meme, you want to go? And, like, spend my money living life instead of paying a mortgage. So I'm really freaking excited. So we move in June. It's in the neighborhood that I wanted. We're going to put up a fence probably right away and, like, jazz up the backyard. I'm just so excited. I want a sauna. I would love to get a pool. But we shall see. And I have trees, so that's the biggest win for me is trees. So yeah, that's that, guys. I was going to talk about other things today, but maybe I'll save that for next time, like bedtime battle stuff, or maybe I'll do a live with someone, bedtime battles. And then also Milo has this thing now where he barely eats dinner, says he's not hungry, but then before bed it's like, I'm hungry, and I'm like, well, then eat your freaking dinner. Like, you didn't eat your dinner. And he's like, no, I want a yogurt, I want a granola bar. I'm like, you can't live life off of yogurt and granola bars. Like, good God. So anyways, we've been dealing with that. But yeah, thanks so much for listening, guys. I'm happy I got this out. I'm gonna go relax and watch Vanderpump now before my next meeting. So thanks so much for listening, and I hope your children sleep tonight and eat their GD, that means goddamn dinner.